We have 6 bullets left.
What's that supposed to mean?
You know exactly what it means.
So this is the end of the world. What is that? I don't know.
You actually think there's somebody out there that's going to protect you from all this?
Do you like being depressed? If the answer is yes, then you might like Apocalypse Road. This is a stark and unflinching vision of a possible future. Written and directed by Brett Bentman, this actually comes to us on Wild Eye Entertainment on the 5th of December 2017. So the plot here focuses on 2 sisters as they traverse this dangerous wilderness in search of food and shelter. And these 2 sisters are separated at the beginning of the movie, and each of them have to go on their each individual path and try and reunite a safe haven they believe is at the coast. And each of them encounter various different sort of characters, and they're obviously having to fight off the kind of the wilderness and do what they have to do to survive. So let's talk about Apocalypse Road. Like I said, this is a very stark film, so do not be expecting kind of like hijinks that you'll kind of get in the Mad Max Fury Road or the kind of the cheesy kind of like post-apocalyptic movies that you've got in the 80s. This is much more akin to, say, the movie The Road that starred Viggo Mortensen. It is a very kind of a horrible kind of atmosphere. Doesn't mean to say it's a bad film, don't get me wrong, but it is very kind of dour, very kind of like a hard film to sit through in certain areas. Now, it's a low budget film, so bear that in mind. So let's talk about what works with the movie Apocalypse Road. For me, the first thing I noticed was the kind of the technical side of stuff. I thought the actual cinematography here, I thought the way the camera movements were all very well executed. And I think the skill here behind the camera is very much on display. So I feel this movie is kind of shot in a very kind of proficient and professional way. Things like kind of the sound mixing, the lighting, I thought was all very, very good. So on a kind of technical side of stuff, I've got to say, I thought it did a very good job. And I feel as a story element as well, it was probably kind of easy to kind of go down the kind of the cheesy, you know, Mad Max kind of style route. So I kind of applaud the filmmakers for trying to make a bit more of a somewhat kind of realistic movie. And also the thing you're going to notice here is even the good guys have to do horrible things. There's no kind of like, you know, true good guy in this, I would say, because everyone is kind of pushed to do despicable things, and even some of the bad guys you'll see, you know, air quotes, bad guys will sometimes have moments of compassion. So it's a very kind of great kind of mix of characters that are all varying degrees of grey. So I thought that was also pretty good. I think the acting here, for the most part, is pretty good. There are a couple of actors who I don't think deliver their lines particularly confidently, but for the most part, I feel the acting here was all very good. And the other thing I say when you do see violence on screen, the way it's filmed and kind of like the stunts, the kind of the sound effects and stuff, it seems very brutal. And you know, when you see a kind of a punch thrown on screen, it looks like it connects, it sounds like it hurts, and people react and kind of people take damage like they would in the real world. So that I thought was very good. There's no kind of fancy kind of like karate moves and things like that. It's very kind of brutal. So what doesn't work? There's 2 big things for me that kind of brought this film down a peg or 2. Firstly, the world building in this movie is very weak. We don't really know anything about why there is an apocalypse. We're kind of told very little at the beginning of the movie. The movie kind of opens with this kind of like a future scene, basically, with this kind of almost like a documentary. I thought it was actually quite effective, but and it gives you a little bit of exposition about the kind of world, but I don't think it's fleshed out enough. I don't feel it kind of sets up kind of the status quo well enough to kind of really to get you as a viewer to kind of understand what's happening. We're told, you know, people are kind of marked and stuff like that, but it doesn't really kind of give you a lot to go on other than that. And the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with this, and this is, I would suspect, maybe due to the lack of budget here, is the world just doesn't look it's an apocalyptic world. All the kind of structures seem perfectly fine. There's plenty of kind of like good condition cars kind of laying around. Even our cast all have kind of like modern haircuts and kind of have proper clean clothes on and that are kind of like, you know, not dirty and stuff like that and not going to tatty. So the kind of the artistic side of this movie maybe has suffered a little bit. And when it's all said and done, when you kind of watch this movie, you'll kind of wonder what the actual point of it is. I mean, on one hand, I guess you could say this is kind of an experience rather than a kind of a narrative-heavy movie. But you'll kind of watch it and think, why did I watch that to a certain degree, if that makes sense? So I don't feel that there's much narrative here. Let's just put it like that. But the other thing I would say is, again, I've mentioned that the acting from a couple of actors here is a little on the kind of the weaker side. And there are a couple of instances where people do seem not particularly realistic. But I'm not going to kind of like point out the actors. Overall, though, for a very low-budget film, I do feel this film has great potential. And I've got to say, I kind of liked the fact that it does have some very kind of serious ideas and you really kind of show you that people can be very kind of complex, and even in these times we'll have good people and bad things will happen to good people, and you know, bad things will happen to bad people as well, but you can never really tell what's going to happen, so it does make it kind of unpredictable. Overall, I would say it's not going to be for everyone, because the tone of this movie is so dour that it's not a fun film to kind of sit through. I mean, it's not like, you know, going to make you cry, but you just think, man, that was kind of depressing, but it's still a well-made film. So overall, I'll give this movie let's give it a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.